Shrimp keeping is a hobby I have enjoyed for a number of years. There's something magical about watching those little tiny shrimp running around an aquarium. And I'm always pleased to hear new people are joining the hobby. So in this video, I'm going to share my 5 top tips for new shrimp keepers. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Richard and I'm the author of the new ebook on Neocaridina shrimp. So tip number 1 is to only keep a single colour of shrimp in any one tank. Shrimp come in a fantastic rainbow of colours: blues, greens, yellows, reds, oranges, you name it, you can have almost any colour you like. And I think it's this fantastic kaleidoscope of colours that has made shrimp so popular. But to create those colours, breeders had to selectively breed each different strain, each different colour. And they did that by making sure the line was pure and making sure in the blue tank only blue shrimp got to breed. In the yellow tanks, only yellow shrimp got to breed. If in our own tanks we mix some blue, some yellow, some red, they will interbreed and we will essentially end up with a brown or a clear shrimp in the end. We'll just end up with a tank full of not very interesting shrimp. Now I'll be the first to admit, the so-called Skittles tank, where we mix a few of each colour, a few shrimp of each colour into an individual tank, does look amazing. And if you already own a number of shrimp tanks and you're trying to find something new to do, then by all means give it a go. But if you're new to shrimp keeping, if you're looking at your first or your second tank, I would highly recommend you choose your favourite colour and keep that one colour strain in that one tank. If you fancy the blues, have a tank of blues. Then if you fancy some yellows, get yourself a second tank, have a tank of yellows. But in the early stages, don't be tempted to mix them all together, as cool as it looks. So, tip number 2 is to provide as many hiding places for the shrimp as possible. Now, providing hiding places for your shrimp may feel counterintuitive. Surely if they have hiding places, they will hide. But in fact, I found the opposite to be true. Shrimp are well aware that they're at the bottom of the food chain, and they spend much of their time aware that predators are around them. If we only provide our shrimp with 1 or 2 hiding places, they will tend to spend their time around that hiding place. So if a predator turns up, they can quickly hide in that one pile of rocks or behind that one ornament. If, however, we fill our tank with potential hiding places, the shrimp know wherever they go, there's always a hiding space nearby. They're a lot more likely to move around the tank freely and be out and about, allowing you to enjoy them. Now, hiding places may include live plants, it could be piles of rocks, it could be a plastic castle. It doesn't matter what it is. The point is, wherever the shrimp go, they should feel there is a place they can shoot and hide if they need to. Now, at the start of this video, I mentioned my ebook on Neocaridina shrimp, and I'm pleased to say I'm able to give away free copies of that book to the first 100 people who click the link in the description. So, tip number 3 is to place a sponge over the intake to your filter. Now, a lot of us like to use hang-on back filters or canister filters, and those are fabulous filters, but they have an intake which draws the water into the filter. And whilst those intakes have a strainer over them, that strainer will prevent fish getting sucked in. It does nothing to protect the shrimp. Now, if a shrimp or a baby shrimp particularly gets sucked into a canister filter or a hang-on back filter, they will typically perish before we realise and have a chance to rescue them. By adding an intake sponge over that filter intake, it cuts down to almost zero the chances of shrimp being sucked in. Now, there are also 2 added bonuses to placing a sponge over the intake to the filter. Firstly, the sponge prevents large pieces of debris being sucked into the filter, like plant leaves for instance, and uneaten fish food, which means your filter will run more efficiently. But those sponges also provide the perfect feeding ground for our shrimp. When you place a filter over the intake, you will often see it covered in shrimp. They'll be eating leaves which are breaking down, they'll be eating fish food which is stuck to the sponge, and they'll also be eating the bacteria which forms on that sponge. So adding an intake sponge helps save your shrimp from being sucked into the filter, helps your filter run more efficiently, and provides another place for the shrimp to feed. Tip number 4 is add Java moss. Java moss is by far my favourite plant to add to any shrimp tank, and if you're not familiar with Java moss, it's essentially a free-form plant which doesn't root in the aquarium. It just either sits in a clump or it can float around depending on how your aquarium is. If you're not keen on it floating around, you can tie it to rocks or to pieces of wood. But the Java moss provides an endless number of hiding places for your shrimp. meaning your shrimp will feel safe and out and about. It also provides the perfect environment for biofilm to form. And biofilm is essentially made up of bacteria and small bits of algae that form on almost every surface of the aquarium, and the shrimp love to feed on it. But the Java moss also, as it grows, absorbs nitrates from the water, nitrates being the byproduct of fish going to the bathroom. So any shrimp tank that has Java moss in it is basically a nicer, safer, healthier place for the shrimp to live. Before I move on to the final tip, please take a moment to tap the like button. It helps show support for my work and spreads this video to other like-minded people. Now, tip number 5 is add Katapa leaves. Katapa leaves, which are also known as Indian almond leaves, are usually purchased dry and then added to the aquarium. Once they're in the shrimp aquarium, they will slowly break down over the period of a few weeks, during which time they provide the perfect feeding ground for shrimp. The shrimp don't actually feed on the leaf itself, but rather on the bacteria that's breaking down the leaf and on the biofilm which also forms on that leaf. Katapa leaves aren't the only leaves we can add to our tank. I carried out a survey recently on this channel, and many shrimp enthusiasts are adding oak leaves, beech leaves and maple leaves, to name but a few. Alder cones are another thing people frequently add to their shrimp tanks. Now, as you become more experienced in the hobby, you may well decide to experiment with leaves you find around you in your own backyard or in the local woods. But for now, in the early stages, I would purchase some Katapa leaves and add 1 or 2 to each tank depending on the size of the aquarium. Now, if you've had shrimp in your tank for a while and haven't yet seen any babies, why not take a moment to check out the video I've linked on screen. Thanks for watching.